Hi guys, it's me Chazza HD and welcome to the first proper scheduled stream of 2024. Now, of course, a couple of days ago I was live for the breaking news that Lewis Hamilton was joining Ferrari, but of course that was an impromptu stream. But yeah, properly great to be back to doing this. Of course, streaming is the most enjoyable thing really that I get up to. And yeah, can't wait to be back at it. And already we are not that far away from the start, really, of the season. Pre-season testing is in 2.5 weeks from now. And then after pre-season testing is finished, we've got basically what? Yeah, a week after that until first Grand Prix in Bahrain. And of course, remember, the first two races of the season, the race days are on a Saturday as opposed to a Sunday. So yeah, we're getting the season a bit earlier this time than normal. But great to see all you guys. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you've had a great winter and you've all been, healthy. You've not been, in terms of mental or physical health, not too bad. And I hope that, no matter what part of the world you're in, no matter what time zone you're in, hope you're all having as best a time as possible, given whatever circumstances you're going through, whether it's in your personal life or just where you are in your part of the world. And yeah, what we're going to be doing in this stream today is going through the biggest news of the winter break up to this point. And of course, we will be covering even more of what happened in regards to the Lewis Hamilton news, with him officially announced now be going to Ferrari in 2025. What we'll be doing with that is going through the official statements from Mercedes and also Lewis Hamilton, big long tweet on Friday, I believe it was. And then we'll also get into the news of Charles Leclerc extending his contract at Ferrari, Lando Norris extending his contract at McLaren. And then we'll get into the news to do with Haas regarding a new team principal. And I will also show on screen the Haas 2024 car, because they did actually reveal their car. What was it, on Friday? It was, of course, a render of their car. It wasn't actually a real in the flesh car. But yeah, we'll go through some of the pictures of those later on. And we will also get into Formula One rejecting Andretti's possible entry for Formula One either in 2025, 2026, or on. And a new Grand Prix will be on the calendar in 2026. Get into that later in the stream. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to be going through. But as we go through these stories and I give my thoughts, make sure to give me your thoughts in the comments or the live chat. And of course, at some point, I will get to your comments in the chat. And there is a poll running at the top of the live chat where I've asked you guys, who is most likely to win the Drivers' Championship at Ferrari, Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton? Obviously, their partnership begins next season. And yeah, who do you think is most likely to win a championship in Scuderia? An interesting question for sure. For sure, sorry. Make sure to let me know your view on that. To be honest, I think I need to think about that a bit before I give my view on that. But let's get into, without a doubt, the biggest news of the winter break and the biggest news that we've had in a long time, and definitely the biggest driver move in a decade. Lewis Hamilton officially announced, it was on Thursday night by Ferrari, pretty much all parties involved, that Lewis Hamilton will be racing for Scuderia Ferrari at the start of the 2025 season, and it is his deal a 2+1 deal. What does that mean? It means he has 2 years, and then one is a option to extend his contract. Basically, if they want to trigger that extra year, then it's already built in to the contract. So he will be at Ferrari until at least the end of 2026. And if the car is good enough and he's still happy to Formula One, then I'm sure he'll extend his contract even further in a couple years from now. But yeah, it's just incredible that this has happened. as I said on my Thursday stream, I never thought Lewis Hamilton would race for Ferrari. I thought he would be at Mercedes really to the end of his career, and I thought the only team really he would join is maybe he would go back to McLaren if there was, um, space available, and if, wanted to retire back where it all started. But even I thought him going back to McLaren was quite unlikely. I thought it was almost 100% guaranteed that he would be Mercedes for life, really. But we found out some more details as to why Lewis Hamilton has decided to leave the Mercedes team. And how, this obviously will be 2024, his final season as a Mercedes driver. But what do you call it? Let's start with the statement regarding this announcement. And what we're going to start with is Lewis Hamilton's tweet that he posted. Actually, it was on Saturday, yesterday. Tweet. Zoom in. I'll just get this up on the screen quickly. So you can see here, this is Lewis Hamilton's tweet. He says in this, what is basically a statement, quote, "It's been a crazy few days which have been filled with a whole range of emotions. But as you all know now, after an incredible 11 years at Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team, the time has come for me to start a new chapter in my life, and I will be joining Ferrari in 2025. I feel incredibly fortunate, Jesus Christ, after achieving things with Mercedes that I could only have dreamed of as a kid, that I now have the chance to fulfill another childhood dream, driving in Ferrari Red. Mercedes has been a huge part of my life since I was 13 years old, so this decision has been the hardest I've ever had to make. I'm incredibly proud of all that we've achieved together, and I'm very grateful for the hard work and dedication of everyone I've worked with over the years, and of course Toto for his friendship, guidance, and leadership. Together we've won titles, broken records, and become the most successful driver team partnership in F1 history. And of course I cannot forget Nicky, who was a huge supporter at him and who I still miss every day. I must also share my huge appreciation to the whole of the Mercedes-Benz board and F1 the company in Germany around the world for supporting me over these 26 years. But the time is right to make a change and take on a new challenge. I still remember the feeling of taking a leap of faith into the unknown when I first joined Mercedes in 2013. I know some people didn't understand it at the time, but it was right to make the move then, and it's the feeling I have again now. I'm excited to see what I can bring to this new opportunity and what we can do together. However, right now, I'm not thinking about 2025. My focus is on the upcoming season and getting back out on track with Mercedes. I am more driven than ever. I am fitter and more focused than ever, and I want to help Mercedes win once again. I'm 100% committed to the job I need to do and determined to end my partnership with the team on a high. Thank you to all of you who have been on this journey with me. You have all lifted me up as I chase my dreams, and I hope I can continue to make you proud. As always, sending you my love and positive energy." And then a couple pictures there of the good times. I mean, a lot of this statement is, stuff that you really expect him to say. The most interesting part to me is this bit where he says, he still remembers the feeling of taking a leap of faith joining Mercedes in 2013, and then says, "I know some people didn't understand at the time, but I was right to make the move then." And then says, "It's the feeling I have again now." So, have Ferrari revealed something to him about what they're, cooking up for the future in terms of the 2026 regulations? Because when Lewis Hamilton signed for Mercedes, Mercedes had to have known then, towards the end of 2012, they had to have known then that they were, doing well with the building of the V6 hybrid. And they were, I think, already by then a step ahead of everybody else, building the new V6 hybrid power unit 2014. Maybe, because of course in 2026 we're going to have new power units really for the first time since 2014. Maybe Ferrari have shown him something that he's seen and he's thought, yeah, I've got to join, because if I don't, then I'm not going to get the chance to win races and championships again. So that is interesting. And yeah, we'll see, of course, if the partnership does prove to be a success. So let me just go back to here quickly, because yeah, in the couple days we've had since that news was announced, there has been further revelations and reports as to why this decision has probably been made by Lewis Hamilton. There's been reports that Lewis Hamilton only told Toto Wolff basically at the start of this week that he intended to join Ferrari for 2025, which definitely is quite a surprise. But there's also been revelations as to why Hamilton has decided not to stick around with Mercedes, and it's really to do with the contract that Hamilton signed, the renewal he signed with Mercedes towards the end of last season. So if I can find it quickly. So let me just get this up. This is from a reliable account. It's a Mercedes, or the main Mercedes F1 fan account, but they do tend to report reliable information. So get it up. And what they're quoting is from this article. And the information is that Mercedes' board of directors refused a proposed deal to make Lewis Hamilton a Mercedes ambassador until 2035. John Elkann, who of course is the person running Ferrari, proposed a $400 million investment in Lewis's projects, such as Mission 44, and transforms him into an ambassador for Ferrari. Also, the contract that Mercedes offered to Lewis, for the one that Lewis signed towards the end of last season, which is, or was, for 2024 and 2025, it has been revealed again by some reliable journalists that that contract that Mercedes gave or offered to Hamilton was going to be 100% the last contract that Mercedes offered Hamilton, and they were basically intending rather on not offering Hamilton another contract past 2025. So the contract that Hamilton signed with Mercedes towards the end of last season basically was a 2-year deal for 2024 and 2025, with no ambassador role and no chance of signing another contract for Mercedes to see him race for the team into 2026, 2027, etc. The Mercedes essentially have kind of, forced Lewis into making a decision, because they've, basically decided that, Hamilton, the contract he signed last year, was his last contract with Mercedes, and they've either, forced Hamilton to either go and join another team, which is what he's doing, or retire, and decided to join Ferrari. So, if it does turn out that that is 100% true, and I'll just come back to this a second. Yeah, if it does turn out that that is 100% true, and again, from the journalists that have reported this, I do believe it to be true. What are Mercedes doing? What are they doing? Lewis Hamilton is still one of the best drivers in the world. He's still clearly better than George Russell. There is no doubt about that. 2023 clearly proved that. So, why are they, forcing Lewis to know, well, yeah, forcing him out of the team essentially. Yes, Lewis Hamilton is not necessarily the future of Mercedes, given that he is, you know, a lot older than George Russell and other prospects that Mercedes do have. But as far as I'm concerned, if Lewis Hamilton is still performing at the level that we know him to, consistently perform at, which is being one of the best drivers in the world, then as far as I'm concerned, just keep giving him a contract. Because even if, yeah, you've got some, some good young prospects in the academy, or there's some other good younger drivers on the grid, it's going to take something quite special to find another driver out there that is as good or as talented as Lewis Hamilton. And most likely, the next great young talent they do find or do have is more likely than not going to be as good as Lewis Hamilton. So, yeah, if that does turn out to be true, and again, I believe it is true, then it's just the wrong decision. And it reminds me of what Ferrari did to Michael Schumacher in 2006. Because Michael, in terms of what we heard officially, Michael, retired, said he was, it was the right time to leave, and that he was, I think he even said that he was a bit fatigued. But in reality, we found out that he was basically forced out of the team because Luca de Montezemolo was unhappy with the lack of credit that he got for the Ferrari success. And that lack of credit that Luca got, by the way, was fully deserved because he didn't really do anything to, didn't really contribute anything, did Luca, to the success of Ferrari in the 2000s, other than hiring Jean Todt and helping to hire some of the other personnel. But I mean, some of that other personnel was really because of, in terms of them being hired, was because of Michael Schumacher and Jean Todt. And yeah, because he was unhappy at the lack of credit that he was getting, he essentially wanted, to take more control of the team and forced Jean Todt to sign Kimi Raikkonen to a Ferrari contract for 2007. But that contract, we believe, was signed, I think, like midway through 2005. And then essentially Luca forced Michael Schumacher into a decision of either stay at the team, but you have to have Kimi Raikkonen as your teammate, or you leave for another team, or you quit. And Michael, because he didn't want to have like a internal battle, the team that he had so much success with and loved so much, he decided not to bother with that battle and just to retire. But in reality, Michael Schumacher did not want to retire from Formula One. If Ferrari had decided not to sign Kimi Raikkonen and had, continued to back Michael, I don't think would have retired in 2006. And again, it reminds me of this in a way, where Mercedes have kind of, forced Lewis's hand. And I just think it's the wrong decision. I really think it's the wrong decision. And yeah, Mercedes built great cars, and Lewis Hamilton must be grateful for, the great cars that Mercedes built. But after Nico Rosberg retired, Lewis Hamilton was Mercedes' man. He was the guy for the team. And I do think that Mercedes should have been more loyal towards Lewis Hamilton, because with what he's done for the team and with the team, I just I think it's just the wrong decision to be deciding that this contract of his was his last with the team. It's, as I said, a few moments ago or a few minutes ago, Mercedes should have been keeping Lewis Hamilton until he was no longer good enough, whenever that is. But, decision's been made, and Lewis Hamilton is now going to be joining the Ferrari team. Let me, what do you call it, get on to Mercedes-Benz quickly before we go on to the man who is now looking for a drive, still racing for Ferrari this season. In terms of Mercedes, yeah, they forced Lewis Hamilton to make a decision. Lewis Hamilton has made a decision. He'll be leaving Mercedes at the end of this season. Who will Mercedes replace Hamilton with? Will they go with a long-term option, which would be throwing their young superstar talent Kimi Antonelli in the car? Or will they go for a bit of a safer short-term option whilst Antonelli develops, such as Alex Albon, Esteban Ocon, maybe even Pierre Gasly, someone of that type of caliber. I mean, there has been rumors in the last couple days that maybe Alex Albon could be an option for the Mercedes team. There was a rumor with Alex Albon a couple days ago, spread by Peter Windsor, who, of course, is a person who's been in and around the Formula One world for a very long time, and is definitely in the know. And he said that he had heard that Alex has been offered a contract for Red Bull for 2025, and that Alex will most likely sign that contract. But then we also heard reports that maybe people working for Albon, people in Albon's team, let's say, maybe putting that rumor out there to force Mercedes' hand in maybe hiring Alex Albon as a driver to replace Lewis Hamilton. So we'll see if anything further develops on that. As I said on Thursday, though, and I'm sticking with this, if Kimi Antonelli does win the F2 championship, then I think they should throw him straight in 2025. I don't think there's any time or any point really waiting for him to have a couple years of development at Williams when, if he was to win the F2 championship, going up against some other very, very talented drivers, Oliver Behrman, Victor Martins, those are two drivers right there who will probably be in Formula One in the future. If he can beat them and, win the F2 championship in a very good style, then I think still that's got to be the number one option in replacing Lewis Hamilton. But I can see why maybe they won't want to do that, because it is a risk. But of course, it was a risk for Lewis Hamilton into a McLaren in 2007, and we saw how that worked out. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But I still think the best case scenario for Mercedes is to put Antonelli in the car in 2025, as long as Antonelli wins the F2 championship. Because if he does win the F2 championship, Antonelli, at such a young age, then I think that proves that Antonelli truly is a very special driver. Maybe isn't quite Lewis Hamilton level of driver. We'll have to see ultimately, once Antonelli gets into Formula One, how good he is. But they need someone, in and around that talent level, really. So that in terms of replacing Hamilton, they need someone in and around his talent level if they're going to not lose out too much with Lewis Hamilton leaving the team. Because Lewis is still clearly the best driver at Mercedes, and last season, Lewis was one of the best drivers on the grid. So it's going to be tough to fill his shoes, but they've definitely got talent there, Mercedes, to help them replace Lewis Hamilton. But of course, with Lewis Hamilton joining Ferrari, that means Carlos Sainz is out of contract at Ferrari at the end of this season, and now looking for a new team. Let me just quickly get up, let me just quickly read out, rather, a statement from Carlos Sainz. He said on Twitter on Thursday, following today's news, Scuderia, Ferrari and myself will part ways at the end of 2024. We still have a long season ahead of us, and like always, I will give my absolute best for the team and for the Tifosi all around the world. News about my future will be announced in due course. I after thinking about it for a bit, I am still mostly sure that he is going to be joining Sauber in 2025, which of course will become Audi in 2026. I think that, considering how long it's been rumored for, and also the connections that Carlos would have with, the team principal of Sauber, Andreas Seidel, who of course was the team boss McLaren when Carlos was there. I just think that is, the likely move that's going to happen. I know there's been the fleeting rumor that Carlos might go to Mercedes. There's even been the odd one about him going to Red Bull. I don't see those happening. There's even been one about Carlos going to Williams, which I'm very surprised by, because I don't see how Williams could possibly afford to have Albon and Sainz in their team. So yeah, I think Carlos Sainz will go to Sauber. And I know there are a couple Carlos Sainz fans out there that are a bit unhappy as to, the nature of this happening. And might be a bit miffed because Carlos Sainz, was so competitive with Leclerc last season. And for a good portion of the season was ahead of Leclerc in the championship. Of course, had a race win, did Carlos, and Leclerc did not. But if we're being honest with ourselves, Charles Leclerc is better than Carlos Sainz. He's definitely more talented. And overall, I think Leclerc is the better driver. Maybe, yeah, you could argue Sainz is more consistent, but that doesn't make him better than Leclerc. And I think it's definitely the right decision to go with Leclerc and Hamilton as opposed to, what they've got currently. So, yeah, bit of a shame for Carlos, but by no means is his, career racing towards the front of the Formula One grid over, because who knows what Audi will do once they get into Formula One. They might be very competitive, maybe not. We'll have to see. So yeah, bit of a shame, but I think understandable in the end that that this has happened. But let me know, guys, in the live chat, in regards to this whole situation, what do you think of, Lewis Hamilton essentially being forced into leaving Mercedes? Do you think Mercedes are right in doing that? Wrong at doing that? What do you think about that? And for Ferrari, what do you think? How do you think this makes Ferrari or hold on, let me try and phrase this question. What do you see dynamics-wise between Leclerc and Hamilton? How do you see that partnership for Ferrari going? Do you think they'll get on just fine? Do you think they'll, not really have too many controversial incidents with each other? Do you think a world championship will be won with Ferrari by Lewis Hamilton? Again, let me know in chat. And if you want to let me know as well what you think about maybe where Carlos Sainz is going to be going to, then yeah, make sure to post your thoughts on that. And also, who do you think Mercedes should replace Lewis Hamilton with? Do you think they should go for a short-term, safer option, or do you think they should throw Kimi Antonelli straight in the car? Let me know in the comments or the live chat, and I will get to your comments in what do you call it? I will get to your comments soon, but I do want to get into a couple more is of news. Get to your comments in the chat. Let me just queue up the thing I'm going to talk about quickly. Right. So, move on to the next story, which is that Charles Leclerc, of course, has a new contract at Ferrari. We don't know when his contract is till. We know it's for several more seasons. That's what Ferrari have said. We believe the contract he has signed is until the end of 2029. And let me just quickly read out what Leclerc had to say once this was announced. He said, quote, "I'm very pleased to know that I'll be wearing Scuderia Ferrari race suit for several more seasons to come. To race for this team has been my dream since I was 3 years old. This team is my second family ever since I joined the Ferrari Academy in 2016. We've accomplished a lot together, fighting through thick and thin over the past 5 years. However, I believe the best is yet to come, and I can't wait for this season to start, to make further progress and be competitive at every race. My dream remains winning the World Championship with Ferrari, and I'm sure that in the years ahead, we will enjoy great times together and make our fans happy. And then the team principal of Ferrari, Frederick Vasseur, said also in a statement, quote, "We know him for his incessant desire to push himself to the limit, and we appreciate his extraordinary abilities when it comes to fighting and overtaking in a race. We are determined to give Charles a winning car, and I know that his determination and commitment are elements that can make the difference in helping us reach our goals." In the end, not a surprise that he signed a contract to stay at Ferrari, because at the end of the day, there was no real other options for him to, no other teams really for him to go to once he signed that contract. Because you have to remember, he signed the contract with Ferrari before it was announced, or even I think even before Lewis Hamilton had even decided that he was going to be racing Ferrari in 2025. So maybe if Lewis Hamilton had announced a few months earlier, he was going to be racing for Ferrari in 2025, then maybe Leclerc would have had discussions with the Mercedes team, and maybe that could have been a move. But given that we didn't know that Hamilton was going to Ferrari until only a couple days ago, this was the only decision really Leclerc could make, because Red Bull obviously not available. McLaren, I mean, there's no point going to them because Ferrari have been consistently more competitive than McLaren for the last 20 years most of the time. Aston Martin was never really an option because Alonso is the number one guy there. Plus, Aston Martin in the second half of last season were a midfield team, so there's no guarantees of success there. And of course, Alpine and teams like that are not an option. So yeah, there was no other option really for Leclerc. The only thing that I do disagree with this piece of news is how long he has signed a contract for. If it is true that he has signed a contract at Ferrari until the end of 2029, I think that's a bit long. I think that's a bit too long of a contract. I mean, I know he'll be getting paid a shit ton of money, and that's great. And, Ferrari's his team. I get that. But if Ferrari continue to fail and, continue their miserable drought over the next 5-6 years, then Leclerc, by the time we get to the end of this decade, Leclerc's going to be what? In his early 30s, is not going to have a world championship and is going to be looking to make desperate moves at that point in his career. So he really better hope that Ferrari do get it together and actually start producing title-winning cars, and as an operation that Ferrari, are performing at a championship-winning level. You better hope that that does happen, because if it doesn't, then his career, possibly the best of his career, is wasted. So we'll have to see. I think if I was his agent, I probably would have signed him to a bit of a shorter term contract, say until the end of 2026 or something like that. Just basically a couple years extension on what he's already got. I think that would have been a better option than a new 5-year deal, which is basically what he signed a couple weeks ago. So yeah, we'll have to see ultimately, how Ferrari are and whether this move does prove to be the right one for Leclerc's career. I really hope it does. As much as I criticize Ferrari, I do want Ferrari to be, world champions. In terms, or not, I don't want Ferrari to be world champion necessarily. I want Ferrari to be, to get back to the Ferrari that they were in the 2000s, for example, in terms of competitiveness and in terms of just quality of team. because having Ferrari be as bad as they've been in the last decade is not good for Formula One, and it's very disappointing to see. Ferrari being a team that can regularly compete for the world championship makes Formula One better. Simple as that. So let's hope that that this decision does not prove to be the wrong one, because if it does, then Leclerc might end up being one of the best drivers we've ever had that will never win a world championship. And I really hope that doesn't happen, because Leclerc is definitely good enough to win a world title. I have zero doubt about that, and I have zero doubt that he, right car, he can do it. I think absolutely put him in a Red Bull instead of Verstappen. I think Leclerc definitely a world champion. So yeah, we'll see what happens, and let's hope not the wrong decision. But also another driver renewing his time at the team he's currently at is Lando Norris, who has signed a new contract. Again, we don't know exactly how many years, but his contract was up at the end of 2025, so presumably he has signed a new contract that takes him up till about the same time as Leclerc. I don't know, end of 2028 or 2029, something like that. But there has been some discussion around Lando as to why didn't Lando have a look maybe at joining Red Bull, because there were plenty of rumours that Red Bull were very keen on Lando and maybe would be welcoming to having Lando in their team as a teammate for Max Verstappen. And I'm just trying to see if what do you call it? I'm trying to see if there's a quote here from Lando about this particular talking point, because I'm just reading through his quotes from when the new deal was announced, and I don't think I can see anything, but there was, there was definitely online on Twitter. There was discussion over, has Lando run away from a fight? And I'm just trying to see if I could find a tweet regards to this to illustrate what I'm talking about. Right, hold on. Just give me a couple minutes, guys. Try and find this, because I'm pretty sure there was a good tweet about this. I'm gonna try and find it. Certain Twitter account. If I can find it. And make sure, of course, to keep posting your comments in the chat. And if you've just joined, then there is a poll running at the top of the live chat as well. You guys can let me know, out of Leclerc and Hamilton, who do you think is more likely to win the World Championship for the Scuderia? Let me keep looking. The tweet is here. Hopefully it is. I'm pretty sure a certain person's account that I'm looking at, I'm pretty sure it was them who tweeted this particular thing, which got people talking. Oh, this was it. Yeah. So let me just yeah, I got something else. Actually, let me just read this out quickly. Let me just go back to Charles Leclerc, because Nib, thankfully, has shared something with me which is rather important. So let me just quickly read this out. So it turns out, and this is from Sky Sports F1, they're the source of this story, that Charles Leclerc knew of Lewis Hamilton's 2025 arrival before he signed his new contract extension. So clearly wasn't interested in going to Mercedes, and Carlos Sainz has been aware for a couple of weeks now that Lewis would be replacing him. So there you go. So I was wrong on that. I assumed that he didn't know, but clearly, like I said, doesn't want to race for Mercedes. But let me go back here just a second. And yeah, it was a tweet by Tomo. I'm sure you guys know who Tomo is. F1 YouTuber, probably the best out there. And it was a quote tweet of an interview that Lando did after the contract was announced. And it was Lando talking about why it would not have been a smart move to join Max Verstappen. And Tomo making a good point that it's, just chalking this up to Lando scared of Max is just, really, it's just stupid. And I have to say that, I mean, yeah, he's, bang on. But this, I guess, narrative about Lando Norris that, that he's scared to go up against drivers that might beat him is as, as Tom says, it's just stupid, and it is naive. Because, I mean, one, look at his teammate, Oscar Piastri, a very, very good driver, F2 champion, and a driver that, I mean, some people are even predicting might even beat Lando this season. No, I don't believe he will. But, you can't say that Lando hasn't already got great competition alongside him. But also, look at the teammates Lando's had so far in his F1 career. He had Carlos Sainz, who was better than him in their time at McLaren. And then McLaren went and replaced Sainz with Daniel Ricciardo, who at the time of signing Ricciardo to a contract, Daniel was, outside of Hamilton and Verstappen, probably the best driver out of the rest. The third best driver in the world during 2020. So it's not like Lando has had, Mick Schumacher, Nikita Mazepin, and Nicholas Latifi as teammates at McLaren. Like, he's already had very competitive teammates, and that's helped prove why, just how good Lando is as a Formula One driver. But also, this, also this narrative about, he's, scared of going up against Verstappen, and why won't he go up against Verstappen? Why does he have to go to Red Bull? Why does he have to go up against Verstappen? I don't understand this. It really, when you properly think about it, it's not really the right thing for Lando to do. And maybe Lando does know that, Max is, the better driver. But if Lando Norris is going to beat Max Verstappen to a world championship, he's not going to do it in the same car. It's not going to happen because Max Verstappen is better than Lando Norris. Therefore, the best thing for Lando to do is to be at a different team, preferably a different team that, can actually, build a better car than Red Bull. Now, can McLaren build a better car than Red Bull? Probably not now, but never know. Maybe in 2026, maybe they can. But also, when Lando signed this contract at McLaren, there wasn't realistically other options for him. He was not going to go to Ferrari. He wasn't going to go to Aston Martin. McLaren are better than Aston Martin. Why would he do that? And, the news about Hamilton going to Ferrari was not announced when he signed his contract, his new contract at McLaren. So the best thing for him to do, Lando, was, at the time he signed it, was to stay at McLaren. So, yeah, I don't really understand why people are so keen for that. I mean, in part, I do understand why, because, I mean, yeah, the vibes and, would be great, and, the content for people online would be great. But when you actually look at, the competition and the racing side of it, it just wouldn't make sense for Lando to go and join Red Bull, where he's going to be beaten most of the time by Max Verstappen and end up being not a number two driver, but just number two to Max Verstappen in a similar way that Daniel Ricciardo was in his final year at Red Bull. And Lando doesn't want to be that. And at the end of the day as well, with Lando, you know, Max Verstappen, as I've said, he is better than Lando Norris. But you don't have to be the best driver in the world to win a world championship. Lando Norris, all he needs is the right car, and I'm pretty sure, will be a world champion because he is incredibly quick, incredibly talented. He proved that last year once again. And if he was in a car that was half a second quicker, or not even half a second quicker, a third of a second quicker per lap than every other car on the grid, Lando, I think even with Oscar as his teammate, I think, Lando would be, world champion. But again, just because that, let's say that happened, that doesn't make Lando the best driver in the world. And again, you don't have to be the best driver in the world to win a world championship. And let me just quickly go back to a OBS here. Yeah, I mean, just look at F1 history, for example. Max Verstappen, at the minute, is winning the world championship. And yes, he is the best driver in Formula One. But if we go back in history and look at other people who've won championships in certain years, clearly see that, it's not about being the absolute best. I mean, Sebastian Vettel, for example, was not the best driver in every season where he won the championship. Yes, he won the championship, but he wasn't the best performing driver in those seasons, in all of those seasons. 2012, for example, he was not the best driver in the world in 2012. It was Fernando Alonso. I mean, if you go look at Jenson Button, for example, with his championship, great championship. He, a great season. He performed very well, was very consistent, but Jenson Button was not the best driver in the world in 2009. Same goes, I would say, probably for 2005 with Fernando Alonso when he won the championship that year. Yeah, he was very consistent. He was very, very good. It was a great first world championship, but he wasn't the best driver in the world in 2005. It was Kimi Räikkönen. And you can go on and on and on, throughout history and look at years where, where a driver who won the championship, more so won it because they were good enough in a car that was the best. Damon Hill in 1996, Jacques Villeneuve in 97 to a degree. And yeah, just keep going on and on and on. Because, that example of Damon Hill. Damon Hill obviously was not the best driver in the world in 1996. It was obviously Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher was a level above everyone in 1996. But because his Ferrari car was so bad, that's why he didn't get the chance to win the title. So, point being is Lando does not need to be teammates with Max Verstappen. He does not need to race for Red Bull. All he needs to do is find a car that is the best, or, the joint best on the grid with another car to give himself a proper chance of winning a championship. He doesn't need to be racing for Red Bull. So, as far as I'm concerned, the decision he has made is the correct one. But if you disagree, let me know in the live chat. But in a moment, I am going to come to your comments in the chat, guys, to see what you guys have to say about what I've talked about so far. Before I do, though, a couple things. Here is my schedule and my upcoming live streams on the channel. Here is my next 2 live streams, actually, on the channel. So next Sunday, I'll be live at the same time again, 12 p.m. UK time, to go through the first half of the car reveals of 2024. So that'll be next Sunday, live at 12 p.m. UK time, the 11th of February. Then the Sunday after, the 18th of February, I'll be live again at 12 p.m. UK time to review all of the rest of the car reveals. The car reveals we're going to be going through next Sunday on the 11th of February will be Haas, Sauber, Williams, Alpine, and Visa Fuckface F1. That's the ones we're going to be going through next Sunday. And then the Sunday after, it will be Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Aston Martin. And then 3 days after that stream on the 18th of February, I'll be live for the first day of pre-season testing. It really is not that far away. So make sure to come along to that content when it does happen. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. And yeah, of course, we'll be doing plenty of content this year to cover the 2024 Formula One season. And everybody watching right now, make sure if you haven't already to smash the like button. We're on 17 likes. Let's try and get up to 25 plus at least, if we can, by the end of the stream. Before, though, I come to your comments in the chat, of course, Haas have already revealed their car. I'm not going to be getting fully into the whole event because I want to get more into that next week in terms of the statements made by the team principal, the new team principal of Haas. I want to get into that next week in proper detail, but I will quickly show you the images if you haven't seen them. So here is the new 2024 Haas car. Just some shots here. And to me, it smells like and looks like 19th and 20th place in Bahrain, which is pretty much where their team principal expects them to be. Yeah, there you go. I'll leave it on screen whilst I read out your comments so you can have a look at this new Haas. I mean, the livery looks okay. It's just a bang average looking car at the end of the day. So yeah, let's get into some comments from you guys. Hello to all of you. Hope you're all doing well. Ace says, sorry, but Charles isn't there yet. Perhaps you could learn a thing or two from Lewis. I don't think it's quite that situation. I don't think Leclerc... I mean, yeah, he could learn things from Lewis, but I don't think it's... I don't think Leclerc's going to be a number 2 to Lewis in any way. Bravamos says, 1 lap pace, I think Charles has him at the moment, but Lewis is far, far more consistent. Mind you, he has been more accident prone last year. Well, yeah, if we look at last season, Leclerc in qualifying was the faster, I think, compared to Hamilton, more of the time. But Lewis was a lot more consistent. And if it's like that when they're teammates, then Lewis will end up Leclerc. If he's not as quick as Leclerc on lap, he's still going to be, right there with him. Not like he's going to be a few tenths of a second off. Michael Gott says Lewis did a similar thing before moving from McLaren to Merck. What was it, 2013-14? Yep. Worked for him back then to help him win the World Championship, but something is saying to me that this time may not work. Well, ultimately, I think whether it'll work for 2025, we're not going to know really anything about that until we see the Ferrari car this year. Because the Ferrari car this year is a complete redesign compared to what we saw last year. And you would think that if the redesigned Ferrari for this year is very good and is maybe on pace with Red Bull, you would think they will keep the basics of that design for next year, and the car next year would be just good. So yeah, in terms of how competitive Ferrari will be for Lewis in 2025, we'll find out more probably this year. But for 2026, again, we're not going to know until pre-season testing in 2026, so there's no point even talking about that. Brabham says Lewis always makes out Merck were terrible when he moved there. They weren't that bad. Beat Red Bull on occasions. I mean, yeah, in their debut season, they finished in 2013 second in the championship. As you say, they weren't terrible, but when he decided to go to Mercedes, when he signed the contract in 2012, Mercedes were a midfield team. I know they won a race in 2012, but I mean, they were only competitive really for like the first, what, 7 races of that year, and then they just fell off the cliff. And then we're racing, Force Indias and Albers and cars like that. So, I mean, yeah, when he signed the contract, they were pretty bad, but yeah, in his first season, they were second in the championship. Michael says 2025 will be a beta year for Lewis. Get to know the team and implement the changes. Competitive. Hello to G Walker. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to all of you. Hope you're all having a good year so far. Phone box says Hamilton's move may end in tears. Lewis hates having a teammate who is up there with him as a joint leader and can't cope. That is not true. If anything, people who are of the same level of as him hate being teammates with him. I mean, Alonso, for example, in 2007, but also Rosberg. As soon as he won a championship, he dipped. So yeah, I don't think Lewis has an issue with being teammates with a driver of equal footing. I mean, most of the time, he's had teammates of equal footing. Alonso, Button, Rosberg. So yeah. Michael's saying, I feel Lewis was getting his nose pushed out with the Merc. They seem to be focusing on Russell now for me and building a car around him. Yeah, there has been stories around that. And I think Lewis, at times has been a bit miffed when it comes to Mercedes' treatment of him. Maybe that's part of it. Phone box saying, I'd love Alex to stay at Williams a bit longer. I'm not sure who Williams will replace him and continue their rebuild. Perez, perhaps? I don't think Perez would go to Williams. I mean, it depends with Albon. If he was to leave the Williams, go to Mercedes in 2025, then you'd think Williams would then sign Antonelli, who would be, great driver for them to have for at least a year, but probably a couple years, I imagine. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out. Apologies, by the way, if you're hearing noises in the background. It's my chair, very, very noisy. Michael says, I rate Albon highly. If I was Toto, I would try to bring him in second seat. Okay, Alex didn't fare too well before at Red Bull, but I think his time at Williams him a lot. Yeah, he similar to Pierre Gasly when he went back to AlphaTauri after being at Red Bull. He's better now than he was when he was at Red Bull. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Last year, Alex was very, very good. Definitely performing at a higher level last year than he was in 2019, 2020. Hey, regardless, my dream grid would be Vettel and Bottas for Mercedes, Hamilton and Mick Schumacher at Ferrari, and Ricardo and Gasly at Red Bull. That's interesting. AlphaTauri, Sainz and Tsunoda, Haas, Verstappen and Mazepin, Jake, Leclerc and Raikkonen, and Stroll and Hulk and both for Aston Martin. Yeah, that'd be quite an interesting grid. Tifa asks, this might be controversial, but what about Ocon and Russell at Mercedes? I don't think that's controversial. I mean, Ocon still has ties to Mercedes and Toto Wolff, so, I mean, it could happen. And if it did, it wouldn't be the greatest driver lineup in the world, but, I mean, it would be a good short-term driver lineup to have whilst they wait for Antonelli to develop. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely worse you can do than Esteban Ocon. Silverback says Charles was washed up the second he signed with Ferrari. They are cute and fun to watch. Like a comment. I get what you mean. trying to say. Nicholas saying, well, hey, do you think that that Charles would get jealous that Lewis might win a championship for Ferrari before Charles does? I mean, there's no point. I mean, if that situation does, it looks like that might occur, there's no point Leclerc getting jealous. He needs to try and stop it from happening. Make sure it's him. Ferrari have a good enough car for that. Is Silverback saying, Kazzy, you're way better than Tomo? Not sure about that, but thank you anyway. Nicholas says, and if Lewis Hamilton wins the championship for Ferrari, do you think that might ruin Charles' reputation of winning a championship before Charles does? In 2025? It depends. If Leclerc loses the title by like 1 point or half a point, then I don't think it affects Leclerc's reputation. But, let's say in 2025, Ferrari and Red Bull have, their cars are as quick as one another, and Hamilton wins the championship. If Leclerc ends up like 50, 60 points behind, then I think absolutely that hurts his reputation. But again, it depends on how far behind he is. Because, I mean, if we look at 2007 with Hamilton and Alonso, Hamilton was better than Alonso in 2007, but they ended up, level on points with one another. And it was still close between the two. And I don't think, in hindsight, that season hurts Alonso's reputation as a driver in terms of how good he is, as maybe it did at the time. So, yeah. Is it Angel says, I see no reason why Perez has to leave Red Bull, but the way Max is driving, no one's going to beat him for a long time. I mean, yeah, with Perez, if he can get back this year to the performance levels 2022, then I think Perez still keep his seat. But whether he can get back to that level, we'll have to see. Because if he can't, then he will be replaced. Still, rumours constantly that Daniel Ricciardo will be a Red Bull driver for 2025. But yeah, depends on a couple things this year. But yeah, thanks for your comments, guys. Make sure to keep them coming. Make sure to keep voting in that poll. We do still have a couple more things to get into, and I'll just queue up the next story we're going to talk about and get the quote. And the focus for the rest of the stream is mainly going to be on American racing teams. So let me get into quickly. So this man, the meme, the guy that many of us love, Guenther Steiner, was sacked by Haas F1 over the Christmas New Year period for poor performance in terms of, Haas finishing in the championship. Of course, Haas finished last in the championship last season, and they've decided to get rid and to replace Steiner with, make sure I get his name correctly, was Romain Grosjean's engineer style. It is Ayao Komatsu. Again, I probably mispronounced his name because I'm terrible at pronouncing names. But yeah, if you guys don't know who he is, again, it's the guy who was Grosjean's race engineer at Lotus, and then I think later on at Haas. Basically, was Gunther Steiner's right-hand man before this happened. But yeah, Autosport International, the yearly show that happens in January, happened, what, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Steiner was there. And yeah, got into, a bit about how it all happened, the hacking, and his his feelings on the situation. And it turned out that he didn't even get to thank the Haas team before his departure. It was just a straight cut in terms of getting rid of Gunther Steiner. And he said at the Autosport International show, quote, "Yeah, it stung, but they all know me and they all know that I appreciate what they did. It's always best to say it to them. It'd be nice to say, hey guys, thanks for what you did for the team. I would just like to thank all the team members, which I couldn't give a proper goodbye to when I left, so I'll do it this way. And I want to say thank you to all the fans who I was there." Yeah, bit of a shame that they couldn't have at least allowed him to, say farewell, because of course he's been the team boss of the Haas team since they came into Formula One in 2016. But the reason that this has happened is because the owner of the team, Dean Haas, is fifth, let's say, at what happened last year with his team. And he said, quote, that the Haas or the decision to get rid of Steiner came down to performance. He said, here we are in our 8th year, over 160 races. We've never had a podium. The last couple of years, we've been 10th or 9th. Not sitting here saying it's Gunther's fault or anything like that, but it just seems like this was an appropriate time to make a change and try a different direction. But it doesn't seem like continuing what we had is really going to work. At the end of the day, it's about performance. I have no interest in being 10th anymore. And then he said a bit about how he didn't get into F1 to sell, because obviously about or speculation that maybe Haas will sell the team to Andretti, but I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, with this decision, surprised definitely. And in terms of looking at, Steiner and what he did at the team and whether he was good enough, it depends really on what you expect Haas to be. And if you look at where Haas have finished season on season compared to other teams and where they've been since they joined Formula One, I think this is the wrong decision. I really do, because at the end of the day, when you look at the model that Haas have, where they have this technical partnership with Ferrari, and also Haas, does not really, doesn't really put as much money into that team as maybe he could try and make it, a bit more successful. I don't think you can really blame Gunther Steiner too much. I mean, if you look at the first couple years they did really well. They, came into Formula One and immediately were a competitive team. I think in 2016 they finished 8th in the championship ahead of a worked Renault team. I think that was, a very good accomplishment. 2017, not great. I mean, they had some points finished, great. 2018, they then finished 5th, an amazing. And then since then, it's been what, 9th, 9th, 10th, 8th, 10th. I think has been the constructors finishing. Again, considering their resources, their infrastructure, and this technical partnership with Ferrari, which has not been great in the last few years, because Ferrari's car has also been not that great in the last few. I don't really see what Gunther Steiner has really been supposed to do with this team, and I think really it's been doing maybe not the absolute best that anyone could do with. I think couldn't really find that many more people that could do better. So yeah, I think it's the wrong decision. And good luck to their new team principal, but I really I don't think it's going to result in better performance, better results. I just don't see. And I mean, this team is now once again, like they were a couple of years ago, the worst team in Formula One. And that's how they're going to be probably this season. Yeah, I mean, a shock and sad news, really, because again, I don't really see what he could have done more. Maybe you could argue that his treatment of drivers at certain times has been a bit harsh, but other than that, I don't really understand what China was supposed to do with this team. I mean, after 2018 was Keen expecting Gunther to try and consistently getting a top 6 constructors position. I don't really get what the expect was for China. So yeah, really disappointed in this. And if Haas in a few years' time decide to, leave Formula One, this will be basically the beginning of that process. Because again, I don't see how their new team principal, how other team principals really can get Haas into a better position, because it's really down to their technical partnership with Ferrari, but also their infrastructure resources are not enough for us to be a consistently very competitive team in Formula One. Yeah, bad decision in my view. Let me know in the chat whether you think it was the right decision to get rid, or do you think that getting rid of Gunther Steiner, do you think it will allow the team to finish higher in the championship long term? Let me know what you think. That. And the final bit of news, not the final bit of news actually, the penultimate bit of news we're going to go on to is to do with Andretti. Because on, what was it? Wednesday, I think it was. Was it? Yeah, Wednesday. The day before the Lewis Hamilton news was announced, Formula One announced that they rejected Andretti's possible entry into Formula One. And yeah, I have got plenty to say about this. What I want to do, though, is I want to go through the official statement made by Formula One, because on the Autosport website there was an official statement bookmarked there, and I've got it up now. And I just want to go through point by point, F1's statement so we can dissect it properly. So yeah, here is the full statement, and this is on the Autosport website. Let's go through it. So on the 22nd of March, the FIA published an invitation to apply to participate in the Formula One World Championship, to which 4 applicants responded. Among them, Andretti. I'd love to know who the 3 other applicants were. The FIA conducted an initial assessment process, which included both a written question and response element and an in-person meeting. The FIA announced on the 2nd of October that they were satisfied that the application submitted by the applicant fulfilled their selection criteria in all material respects, and that accordingly the FIA considered that the applicant should progress to the next stage of the agreed process as set out in the invitation, being an assessment by the commercial rights holder, which is FOM, Formula One Management, of the applicant's value to the championship. We'll get that later. And then says some other stuff there. Point 3. The FIA had previously shared with us the materials submitted by each of the 4 applicants in response to the invitation, which we had studied. Following the FIA's announcement, we wrote to the applicant on the 10th of October 2023, setting out the assessment process and details of the consideration and decision-making process pursuant to which we would conduct our commercial assessment. Having had the opportunity to consider the applicant's responses together with our own deliberations, we subsequently wrote to the applicant on the 12th of December 2023, extending an invitation to an in-person meeting at our offices in order for the applicant to present its application. But the applicant did not take us up on this offer. More on that later, because that is a complete farce in terms of that meeting. So let's get into the review process. As contemplated by the process letter, we took account of the broad range of ways in which value could be provided, including value to fans, the prestige and reputational value of the sport, the competitive balance of the championship, and the sustainability goals of the sport. The key areas of review were A, consideration of the likely competitiveness of the Andretti team, consideration of the applicant's arrangements with respect to the supply of power units and the impact of those arrangements would have on the applicant's competitive performance, research into the potential benefits the applicant might bring in terms of fan growth, fan engagement, as well as the equivalent materials provided by the C group on behalf of the applicant, or what CT group is. Consultation with key stakeholders to understand their view of the value that the applicant would bring. We all know who key stakeholders are. Consideration of the operational impact on our existing circuits of adding an 11th team. I mean, there is no impact because most of the circuits on the calendar have to accommodate more than 10 teams anyway. Part of the of them having the certain grades they have. Consideration of the likely impact of the applicant's entry on the commercial rights holders' financial results as an indicator of value, and consideration of the applicant's financial sustainability based on the materials provided. And then they go on to clarify, our assessment did not involve any consultation with the current F1 team. However, in considering the best interests of the championship, we took account of the impact of the entry of an 11th team would have on all commercial stakeholders in Formula One. Personally, I do not believe this is true. I know they've said this, but just because they've said they did not, or there was no consultation with other F1 teams, that does not mean it's true just because they say that. They haven't provided evidence to back up that statement. So, just so you know, I don't believe this, and I don't think really anyone should. So, let's get into their, I guess, review of Andretti's entry bid. So they say, this is F1 saying this, they say, our assessment process has established that the presence of an 11th F1 team would not, in and of itself, provide value to the championship. Any 11th team should show that its participation and involvement would bring benefit to the championship. The most significant way in which a new entrant would bring value is by being competitive, in particular by competing for podiums and race wins. This would materially increase fan engagement and will also increase the value of the championship in the eyes of key stakeholders and sources of revenue, such as broadcasters and race promoters. The application contemplates an association with General Motors that does not initially include a power unit supply, with an ambition for a full partnership with General Motors as a power unit supply in due course, but this will not be the case for some years. Having a General Motors power unit supply attached to the application at the outset would have enhanced its credibility, though a novice constructor in partnership with a new entrant power unit supplier would also have a significant challenge to overcome. Most of the attempts to establish a new constructor the last several decades have not been successful. Before we move on, that statement of most of the attempts to establish a new constructor in the last several decades have not been successful, what do they mean by that? Do they mean, in terms of not been successful, what are they deeming not successful? Are they deeming unsuccessful as not having a race win or not winning a championship? What is their criteria for that? I'd love to know, because there's been plenty of new F1 teams, and I wouldn't say most of the most of the attempts to establish a new constructor. I mean, do they mean by that, that most people who have attempted to enter Formula One have been unsuccessful? Again, that's true. I'm not necessarily sure, but yeah, I just disagree with that part of the statement. let me just make sure that I am actually showing. Yeah, I am actually showing this on screen. 2025, they say, will be the last year of the current regulatory cycle, and 2026 will be the first year of the subsequent cycle, for which an entirely different car to the previous cycle will be required. The applicant proposes as a novice constructor to design and build a car under the 2025 regulations, and then in the very next year to design and build a completely different car under the 2026 regulations. Further, the applicant proposes to attempt this with a dependency on a compulsory supply from a rival power unit manufacturer that will inevitably be reticent to extend its collaboration with the applicant beyond the minimum required, while the applicant pursues its ambition of collaborating with General Motors as a power unit supplier in the longer term, which a compulsory power unit supplier would see as a risk to its intellectual property and know-how. When it comes to this, in terms of Andretti wanting to build a car for 2025 and then build a completely different car for 2026, it turns out that Andretti have not been, building a car with the intention of entering in 2025. So they don't understand why F1 are saying this. So it is not true that they're building a car for 2025. They're actually building a car for 2026, or at least that is what they have said. Then it goes on to say, we do not believe that there is a basis for any new applicant to be admitted in 2025, given that this would involve a novice entrant building two completely different cars in its first 2 years of existence. Again, though, this, point 12 here is really meaningless because, again, if it is true that Andretti are building a car for 2026, then again, this whole point is null and void. Number 13, coming to the sport as a new power unit manufacturer is also a huge challenge with which major automotive manufacturers have struggled in the past, and one which can take a manufacturer a number of years of significant investment in order to become competitive. General Motors have the resource and credibility to be more than capable of attempting this, but success is not assured. When it comes to this point, again, I do disagree. Major automotive manufacturers, yeah, there has been some that have struggled, but most manufacturers that have come into Formula One have been, again, successful to a degree. But again, I want to know what their criteria for success is. Is it winning a race? Finishing in the top 3 of the championship? Is it winning the championship? I don't understand what they mean exactly by success. But again, most manufacturers that have joined Formula One, whether it's as a supplier or as a works team, most of them have been front-running teams. Yeah, there's been the Toyotas of the world that have not quite hit the heights they were supposed to, but I wouldn't say there's been that many major manufacturers that have necessarily failed in Formula One. So yeah, I don't quite agree with that. And in terms of the hybrid power unit era, let's be honest, there's only been one manufacturer that's produced a power unit that is like really poor, which is Honda. Renault did produce some power units that, yeah, were probably poor as well, but were had a lot more power, let's say. But it's not like there's many cases of many manufacturers failing. So yeah, I just don't quite agree with that part of the statement. But let's get on to the part that is going to infuriate us even more, and it's the conclusions of commercial assessment. They say, our assessment process has established that the presence of an 11th F1 team would not on its own provide value to the championship. The most significant way in which a new entrant would bring value is by being competitive. We do not believe, they say, Formula One, we do not believe that the applicant would be a competitive participant. How do they know that? How do they know that? Andretti, they do have a car in the wind tunnel, but I'm pretty sure that even they are not 100% sure of like where they would be competitive wise as to whether would they be competitive or not. And I'm pretty sure that FOM doesn't know for sure how competitive Andretti would be. Maybe they wouldn't be competitive, but they don't know whether they would be or not. That is the point I'm trying to make. But let's be honest with Andretti. Let's say they enter in 2026, and the rumor is that the power unit they would be supplied was going to be from Renault, because apparently they had signed a deal from last year or something for that to, if they were to get on the grid. Given Andretti and their resources, their success in other series, IndyCar, Formula E, all these different series where they've had success, given the professionalism of their operation, plus a Renault power unit that in 2026 probably won't be the best, but it will still be competitive. Chances are Andretti would be competitive. Maybe they wouldn't be on the podium every week, but they would, they'd be probably just as competitive, maybe even more competitive than teams like Haas or, maybe even, whatever the fuck you call them now, Visa Cash App. So I just completely disagree with that. And again, in terms of their assessment of would Andretti be competitive, it's incorrect in my view. And again, their criteria, if they are using any criteria to determine competitiveness, is complete bullshit as far as I'm concerned. And I'm telling you now, I would not be surprised, not saying that this has happened, but I would not be surprised if they don't have a criteria for certain things and they're just making it up as they go along. Would not surprise me. But yeah, I completely disagree with that. Then it goes on to say, the need for any new team to take a compulsory power unit supply, potentially over a period of several seasons, would be damaging to the prestige and standing of the championship. Why would it? Why would it? They've not even explained why. They've just made a statement and not explained why it would be damaging. I am really baffled by that. I mean, I know earlier with we go back earlier, they were saying what is it? Which a compulsory power unit supply would see as a risk to its intellectual property and know-how if if Andretti does pursue its ambition of collaborating with General Motors in the longer term. But I don't see how this is damaging to the prestige or standing of the championship if that's what they mean. So I just don't get it. I really don't get it, and disagree what they're saying there. Number 16. This probably the biggest part of the statement. F1 say, quote, while the Andretti name carries some recognition for F1 fans, our research indicates that F1 would bring value to the Andretti brand rather than the other way round. Really? Really? And to be honest, I mean, if we start with the start of that particular part of the statement, I think Andretti carries more than some recognition for F1 fans. I think most F1 fans know who Andretti are. It's not like they're some random American team that's only just started winning stuff in the last few years. They've been around for decades. I think it carries a bit more than just some recognition. But then with them saying our research indicates that F1 would bring value to the Andretti brand. I mean, that is true. F1 would bring value to the Andretti brand. But the issue is that you can also say that for other teams that are currently on the grid, like Haas. Does Haas really bring any proper value to Formula One? F1 definitely brings value to the Haas brand and the Haas name, but does Haas bring any to F1? I don't think so. Does Visa, Cash App, whatever the fuck, do they bring value to Formula One? F1 definitely brings value to them. Same goes for Sauber. And maybe even say the same for Alpine at this point. So, whilst that is true, the F1, yeah, they would bring value to the Andretti brand. You know, that is also true for other teams currently in Formula One. Therefore, Formula One hypocritical on that point. And Andretti, because I believe they would be competitive, unlike Formula One, who, you know, from their own criteria or however they're determining it, don't think Andretti would be competitive. Yeah, because I think Andretti would be competitive, that in itself would add, in my view, more value for Formula One having another competitive team. So, yeah, just completely disagree with that part of the statement. Let me know what you think in the chat, guys. It's just, yeah. I just can't believe, really, the arrogance of saying that you know, our research indicates that F1 would bring more value to the Andretti brand, when the same could be said for 3 or 4 teams currently in Formula One. Like, for fuck's sake, it's incredible. It really is. Again, though, as I said earlier, with you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have F1 a criteria for competitiveness. I also would not be surprised if there wasn't any research conducted to, you know, to determine value that Andretti would bring. Yes, they've said they've done research, but that doesn't mean they have. That's just what they've said. They haven't provided actual research. They've just said they've done research, which is not evidence that they've done research. And I guarantee you, if you actually tried to do research on whether Andretti would bring value to Formula One on a more objective basis, you'd probably come up with a different result than F1 that would be more in favor of Andretti. But yeah, again, wouldn't be surprised at all if their research was either complete bullshit or lied about it. Again, I wouldn't be surprised. Not saying that that's what's happened, but saying I wouldn't be surprised if that case. Number 17, the addition of an 11th team would place operational burden on race promoters, would subject some of them to significant costs, and would reduce the technical, operational, and commercial spaces of the other competitors. I mean, would it place or would it subject some of them to significant costs? Again, how much are we talking? They haven't provided a figure, so we don't know. And yeah, it's true, it would reduce the technical, operational, commercial spaces of other competitors, but it wasn't a problem 12 years ago when I started watching F1. When we had 12 teams, wasn't a problem then. Nobody back then was complaining about the technical, operational, and commercial spaces of the other 10 teams. So again, like, I don't really see why that matters so much. Plus, a lot of these race promoters are the promoters of races that used to host races where there were 12 or sometimes even more teams. So it's not like they couldn't, you know, accommodate those teams. Number 18, we were not able to identify any material expected positive impact on CRH financial results as a key indicator of the pure commercial value of the championship. That right there just shows that FOM's priorities are totally in the wrong place. It's all about how much money will it make for them. It's got nothing to do with will it make Formula One better. No, it's got everything to do with will it make our bank accounts bigger. And that's why at this point I do hate Liberty Media as much as I do, because that's all it's about. It's all about money, all about making money. It doesn't matter about the quality of the product, all about making money. And I did see a very good tweet about this on Wednesday from an American motorsport fan, and I think others have said this as well, that Liberty Media is not interested um in like American teams or American motorsport people. They just want American dollars. That's all they care about. And that's just they're a clear example of that. And then they go on to say, on the basis of the application as it stands, we do not believe that the applicant has shown that it would add value to the championship. We conclude that the applicant's application, Jesus Christ, to participate in the championship should not be successful. They end it on, though, this, which says, we would look differently on an application for the entry of a team into the 2028 championship with a General Motors power unit. That's when General Motors, by the way, they are going to enter. Okay. Either as a General Motors works team or as a General Motors customer team, designing all allowable components in-house. In this case, there would be additional factors to consider in respect of the value that the applicant would bring to the championship, in particular respect of bringing a prestigious new OEM to the sport as a power unit supplier. And that right there is further proof that FOM or Liberty, they're interested more so in General Motors. They couldn't give a fuck about Andretti. I can tell you that now. But that is their statement. Let me know in the chat what you thought of that. But yeah, just terrible. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And again, as the point I made as I was going through it, what is their criteria? What criteria have they come up with to determine competitiveness, value, all of these things? Where is their criteria? Again, I don't believe they have criteria. I think they've just made it up because they are not interested in Andretti entering unless they can get a massive payday from it. But, if Andretti do take this to court, which they can do, they could go to the European Union courts over, I think, antitrust laws. And it would be interesting to see if Andretti could force FOM to actually show their research or show whatever criteria they have, because I guarantee it will show nothing. But yeah, just absolutely terrible decision from FOM, Liberty Media, whatever you want to call it, and everybody was against it on social media when the news came out. But we have had some further news in regards to this. And it is Andretti's response, basically. So let me just get this up on the screen quickly. This is Chris Medland tweeted yesterday. Was it? Or yesterday or Friday? Oh, no, it was Friday. So Andretti Cadillac hits back at F1's comments, stating it was working towards 2026, not 2025, as the length of the process took that out of contention. So Andretti already correcting F1 from their point of view. And, I mean, I do believe them on that because, I mean, it would be silly to come in 2025 when we're having a 20. And then they go on to say it was not aware that the offer of a meeting had been extended and would not decline a meeting with FOM and wants one. That meeting they're talking about is that one on December 12th that they said in the statement that the applicant did not respond to. I can't even believe this is true. But according to Jenna Pryor, who looks like she's reliable, looks like she works for Associated Press, quite a lot of followers. The email invitation to an in-person meeting was from an FOM staff member but went into a junk folder. I don't even know what to say to that. But yeah, Andretti's response really has been, well, we're just going to crack on anyway, and we will be in Formula 1 in 2026, even though FOM have said no. So we'll have to see how this further develops, but of course I disagree with the decision made. Andretti would bring value to Formula 1. There is no doubt about that. In terms of, the competitive side of F1, they would absolutely add more value because they are a serious motorsport outfit. They're not just some random team that started a year ago. They are a proper organization. But also, this whole discussion over value is just bullshit at the end of the day anyway, because teams entering Formula One should not be down to, oh, the value they bring, the value. Who cares? Who cares? It should be about increasing the size of the grid to increase competitiveness. It's a sporting competition, for fuck's sake. But, as we've seen continued examples of, Formula One is a private members club, and it's run by the people a part of the club. There is no hierarchy necessarily. And they just want it to remain 10 teams, and that's it. So, yeah, it's just so sad. So sad. But let me have a look at what you guys think of this situation. Does Haas meet those requirements? Don't think so. I think, yeah, if you did the same, if you did the same review of Haas, yeah, would they pass those requirements? Maybe not all of them. But we have to remember with Haas that when they entered F1, Bernie was running F1. And of course, if he was still running F1, Andretti would have already been in Formula One. He would not have, got in the way. He would have allowed them in because he had no problem with new. In fact, you could say to Bernie's detriment, he was a bit too allowing of new teams. We had a few teams on that were a bit too a bit of a joke at times. So yeah. Um. Yeah. Michael says, "Is it inverted snobbery from F1, wherein if Audi comes along, will they offer them a place on the grid?" Well, Andretti, Audi will be on the grid, won't they, in 2026? Andretti is getting blackballed for some reason. We all know the reason at the end of the day. The reason people within Formula One don't want Andretti to join is because they'll have to divide the prize money up more, which means less money for each team. That's it. That is purely the reason. It's got nothing to do with, oh, the value, the value. It's got nothing to do with that. They're just making up bullshit to hide what the real reason is. Because if they actually told you what the real reason is, they would look like corrupt assholes. That's what they would look like if they actually talked about what the main point of contention was, rather than talking about, value all the time. So, yeah. Michael says there were rumors that F1 seemed reluctant to allow another team due to the major reconstruction of the garages and maybe tracks cost them money. Although Martin Brundle says that's no problem. Yeah, most of the tracks have space for more than 10 teams, and I think even I don't know this for sure, but I think it's been part of the grading thing for FIA or for tracks. Get certain grades licenses they get. They have to be able to accommodate more than so many teams or whatever. I'd have to do some research into that before I'm in that though. Logic tells you that if you wanted to get us more on board with F1, then you bring in another US team. Seems logical to me. It does. Michael Gott says, can't stand F1. The sport was highly developing in the US, and with this decision of denying entry to an American team, that could take interest away from the US and damage F1. I don't think it will, because the Grand Prix, in terms of where they're held in places, most of them held in places where the people that go to them don't really care about American motorsport. The people that go to the Vegas or Miami race, they're not people who really care about American motorsport. The people that go to the race in Austin probably do, because they're more of the grassroots motorsport fan. but and a diehard motorsport fan. But that's why in America they want all the races to be street circuits in these big cities because they want to appeal to people who have tons of money rather than diehard motorsport fans. And talking of new circuits, before we get on to the announcement of a new circuit, it was revealed a couple weeks ago that Formula One has filed for a trademark for a new Grand Prix in America, the Grand Prix of Chicago. Now, it has been further revealed that a Grand Prix in Chicago in 2026 or whatever is unlikely at the moment, but it is interesting nonetheless, and also disheartening to hear that there's going to be a Grand Prix in Chicago. Because, I mean, who the fuck wants a Grand Prix in Chicago? Absolutely no one is the answer to that. But there will be a new Grand Prix on the calendar in 2026, a new street circuit. And here it is, the IFEMA Madrid circuit. This will not, by the way, replace the Grand Prix in Catalonia. That will remain on the calendar. So we will have 2 Spanish races on the calendar from 2026. And here is the track layout. And looking at it from this angle, it looks like if the Baku and Mexico track had a baby. You've got some 90-degree corners in there. You've got some long sweeping left right sections. Looking at the track, and I've seen onboard laps of the proposed track in terms of like a video game onboard lap. There doesn't really seem to be any overtaking opportunities at this circuit. But remember, the reason they are so keen on this Madrid Grand Prix is also because they held the first ever F1 exhibition in Madrid 2022. So this was on the cards for a while. And yeah, say hello to another terrible circuit that we're all going to despise. But guys, that is it for this stream. Thank you guys for coming along. Been great to have you along for almost 2 hours now. And yeah, been good to go through all of this news. Before I go though, quick reminder, next 2 live streams on the channel. I'll be live next Sunday to go through the first half of the car reveals in 2024. That'll be next Sunday, 12 PM UK time, and we'll be going through the car reveals properly of Haas, Sauber, Alpine, Williams, and the Visa Cash App team. And then the week after, on the 18th of February, Sunday the 18th of February, live again at 12 PM UK time to go through the other car reveals. Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, and Aston Martin. 3 days after that will be pre-season testing. So yeah, plenty of stuff coming your way. Also, in between these 2 live streams, I will be uploading that long video I've been working on for the last couple of months. Don't know exactly what day it will come out, but it will be in between those 2 live streams right there. Before I go, though, let me finish up the poll in the chat. 65 votes in total for the question of who is most likely to win the World Championship for Ferrari. 67% of you went for Lewis Hamilton, with 32% going for Charles Leclerc. Thank you for voting. Thank you for coming along. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for more content like this, because we're doing plenty of content covering the 2024 season. Watch-alongs, reviews, previews, reactions, news roundups like this. Make sure to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you do it there. Before you go, make sure to smash that like button. We're on 22 likes. Let's try and get 25 plus if we can before we head off. And as well, make sure to check out some of my latest content on the channel. There is a link below to my last video, a recorded video on the channel, which is about why I think Lance Stroll is finished in Formula One. Did very well, of course, over 100,000 views. Make sure to go and check that out if you haven't already. Also, link below and probably a link in the chat to my Discord server if you want to join our growing community. Then make sure to click the link and join our Discord. Great place that is for notifications, streams, and just channel updates in general when it comes to what I'm doing. But guys, until I stream next Sunday at the same time, 12 PM UK time, to go through some of the early car reveals so far this year. It has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.